bring back in 6 inches of stone, 8 inches of concrete. We pour 6 inches of reinforced 4,000 PSI concrete everywhere we go. When we come into Watseka, city ordinance is 14 inches deep. That makes no sense to me. The lack of communication is because everything that we submit to the city goes out somewhere else. Why can't we sit down with the city and say, this is what we want to do?
I don't know.
Why does everything have to go to Chicago? That's the problem.
Why can't
Well, we got Robinson and, I mean, is that possible tonight? To get some of these?
We are not going to put fire, they make these comments, let's just put fire hydrants all the way around. Didn't say how many. There's a fire hydrant right outside the fence. They're making up all this stuff when we should be talking with the city of Watseka, not some engineer out of Chicago.
There's never been.
That's the problem.
Right, that's a good point.
I understand what you're saying, Mark, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but are the 9 of us going to sit here and say we're confident enough to review these plans and look at them and say, yeah, they're okay?
Well, certainly not.
Then that's why we send them out for review.
I understand that, but.
Why
it
though?
doesn't cover-
You don't want to believe me, like, it's private property. If we pour 6 inches of reinforced concrete and it breaks up 10 years from now, are we going to sue the city? No, we're going to fix it. This is what I don't understand. Everywhere we go, we submit a site plan and we're allowed to put 6 inches of concrete in our buildings, 6 inches of concrete in our, we talk to Watseka, and they want us to excavate and haul all this off
14.
and bring in 14 inches of stone and concrete? Bob, we can't afford to do that.
I want to argue that point.
Of 6,300 people.
Regarding, I mean, let me, one quick second, regarding the comment, can we all sit down? I think that is Mark's frustration, and Mark's done projects for us all over the place. He's top notch. No, we can't sit down because we're told, well, we need, we need permits. Mark went in for permits and said, well, you can't get a permit. The owner of the company has to come in for a permit. We have to come back for that. Our subs have come down for permits 3 times and still not walked away with the permit. We don't get any answers from the city of Watseka. We're still waiting, for architectural comments. We don't even know, we've got the name of the gentleman that reviewed our architectural plans, I think in Naperville or somewhere up north. I don't know the name of the company. He called our architect.
I don't even know a name. I talked to him one time on the phone.
Kessler engineer.
Okay.
He has never, Mr. Mayor, he has never sent an email to my architect after 2 months.
Our architect
He
is...
talked to him on the phone, tore the plans apart, never sent him a list of what the deficiencies were. How are we supposed to reply to that? We talk about lack of communication. That's a lack of communication, because we should be talking with the city of Watseka and getting this resolved. Not some guy in Chicago who thinks he knows everything and thinks everything we're doing is wrong. We have 60 stores. We know how to light our showroom. He as much as told me that we're ridiculous, that we're leaving the existing lighting because we should do it the way we're going to set our fixtures up. Surely we know how to light our showroom.
And regarding Mr. Marcier, Mr. Marcier's comments, look, if these 2 gentlemen and Robinson engineering people, whatever, if they want to meet at Steak and Shake after the meeting, I'll stay here till 2 in the morning to go through this stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But I can sit down with them and talk till my face is blue, but we're not going to get any answers. And
But could we narrow it down to just a few items that you still disagree with?
more than happy to. Yeah,
I think that's what needs to be
And
done.
the partial permits would be an option.
Here's the number 1 point I want to ask the city council. Why is my architect, who has a stamp, who is one of the chief architects for State Farm Insurance, has a stamp in Missouri and in Illinois, stamps all our plans, we take them in, a day later we get a permit, but when I submit it to the city of Watseka after paying $4,000,
they won't accept the plans.
you might as well throw him away because he's not good enough. He's got a stamp for the state of Illinois, he's not good enough. They got to go to Chicago and be torn apart.
Why?
This is the problem.
One of the largest insurers.
Why is the question. I want to know why.
One of the largest insurers, and I don't think their buildings are falling down hurting people.
So,
This guy pays for that stamp.
Let me just a minute. Sure. I'm going to take your why question, ask the city attorney.
Okay.
Well, obviously, the city has some exposure that we don't follow our ordinance. I think the concept of you submitting the plans policies, then they are reviewed by our architect. I think it's an appropriate one if it's on a particularly large project. Obviously, I have no idea why it's taken so long to get this through. I know the representative from Robinson is here, and perhaps she can shed some light on this.
Actually, Robinson's review
Yeah,
came back.
Washington, or Robinson got it back.
I mean,
Robinson,
We just don't agree with some of
We
the
have
things that
41
came up with.
deficiencies that we need to work through, but Castle Engineering is the problem, I would acknowledge that, I agree with that 100%.
Well,
When we talked yesterday, that was,
and I don't want minor details to get in the way of this, you know.
And they shouldn't.
Yeah,
Maybe it's time for us to just explore different, we've learned.
yeah,
well,
I think there's.
Can I ask you one thing? Why wasn't that stamp good enough on the plans we submitted? That, isn't it his liability? Did he or did he not design that? Isn't it his liability?
typically, I think what Mark is saying is, in our experience, once a licensed professional submits the plans, signs, stamps, everything, the liability then falls on them and on us. And I understand you guys want a review process, you know, most cities do. I just think most cities handle their, review processes a little bit differently. But, I don't want to get into all that. I want to keep this, calm and everything like that. I don't want minor things to get in the way. We can work our way through most of these items, but I will tell you that you guys have a serious problem over here, and I don't appreciate the way our employees have been treated. I don't appreciate the way our subcontractors have been treated. These are subcontractors that we use numerous times. What's this guy going to say to me next time I want to hire him somewhere else? And well, not after what you put me through in Watseka, which I've already heard. Look, I serve on committees back home. We're civil servants when we take these roles. We're not, kingmakers, and we shouldn't be waving a sword over people's head, and we shouldn't be treating people like second-class citizens. It's just not appropriate. I'm willing to put all that stuff aside. I just want everyone here to be aware of that problem, and I think it needs to be addressed. But that's none of my business. I just want to get a lumberyard open. I want to hire people. But I'm telling you, and I'm not saying this to be obnoxious, if it doesn't get addressed, very quickly, properly, above board, the right way, we will shut the place down. Well, you guys already shut it down, but we will keep the place shut down. We'll put a sign up out front, and we'll just lease the warehouse space, and whatever happens to the building, we'll figure it out later. But once we get open to business, what's the guarantee that we don't start getting beat up on everything else? It's kind of a leap of faith that, once you open, things will change. I don't know.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
And either one of you, Mark, either one of you can answer this. You indicated that, when you submit your plans to each other, and this is a learning process for me, okay?
Yes.
You submit your plans to another community, basically, they just look at it, they issue their permits, and Mr. Plummer, you said something about, a lot of them ask for reviews. The permit is issued, and you're allowed to go ahead and start your work while that is being sent for review. Is that basically what you're telling us? That's the way some of the other communities operate?
All municipalities operate a little bit differently.
Right.
That being said, typically what we will encounter is, it depends on the project a little bit, but in this type of situation, we'll submit a signed field site plan, and they'll issue some sort of permit, maybe I don't want to say temporary permit, but a partial permit, or a full permit, but I want everything done right, and I know the city attorney will get nervous when I say that. Sometimes they say, look, we'll give you a permit, but here's 3 things you gotta fix. And you know what? You won't ever find a community that will ever say, we didn't fix whatever they asked us to fix. So a lot of it's just common sense. A lot of it's, hey, look, get to work, I know you gotta move some walls, and you gotta do this, and you gotta paint this, and do all that, but these 3 things you guys have to address. I've never run into a situation in any community where, we've got guys putting tile on the floor, and we've got all the windows blocked out because I feel like we're getting stalked, for heaven's sake. Just put tile on the floor. I remind you that this was an operating business not too long ago with tile on the floor. That none of it's tile.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On the interior of your building, did you move any interior walls especially on the north end, there was a big wall to an office or something upstairs.
We moved, or we knocked down some non-load bearing walls, and we have expanded the restrooms because the restrooms were not ADA compliant, and so we made them ADA compliant.
But the nose was not ADA compliant out there.
No, I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, what we're trying to do is like the entrance, we want to make it safer, we want to make sure everything is ADA compliant and all that. So the restrooms, there were 2 restrooms back to back to each other, and so the one wall we pushed about 3 feet south, and one wall we pushed about 3 feet north, built new walls. Now the restrooms are ADA compliant. We did that, and then there was a jumble of offices and stuff, and some of the non-load bearing walls we removed. Yes, sir.
There was a demolition permit issue.
Yes.
Okay, so as far as knocking down those walls.
And that was all, yes, sir. We did that once.
We have not changed anything structural. I know that there's some opinion in this room that thought that we are going ahead without a permit and changing the structural walls. We're not. We were hoping that we may get a permit. So would we love to get that done? Of course we would. But this lack of communication in an architect that won't even send an email in today's day and age to my architect so he can address what he doesn't like. He as much as told me that entire heating and ventilation system has to be ripped out. I'm working with Weber Plumbing and Heating. He said, Mark, if I tore those furnaces out, I put the same ones back in.
Actually, the comment that was made was that we were crazy and we were going to poison our customers with the existing HVAC system, and so we hired a local company. Again, it cost money, came in, reviewed everything, said, this guy's crazy, these things work great, everything's good. Even if I tore them out, like Mark said, I put the same exact system back in.
Who told you you're gonna poison your customers?
That was
that guy, that architect out of Chicago, the guy that's supposed to be,
or whatever his name
the
is.
guy that's been reviewing our plans for the last 44 days.
How is that any of the inspectors?
I think the bid thing is one of the most egregious things. I have never.
How is it, frankly, can we do that?
I don't know if he said it, but let's assume he did, that's not appropriate, that's nothing between the cities.
And that's not just us saying that.
He told us he doesn't like our lights. He goes, oh, you're gonna have 150 people there, you gotta have more toilets. I said, we could only wish that we could have 100. This is Watseka, Illinois. He's supposed to be in downtown Chicago.
I've never seen 150 people, not even for their concert.
I mean, the state plumbing code states you have to have 2 toilets per restroom if you have over 150 people.
I said, Charles, we could only wish that we could ever do that kind of business in Watseka,
Unless you do
Illinois.
You council
hot dog
members
flip or
know how tough it's gonna be for us to make a go of it in this town. Why make it harder?
Just, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I didn't get a chance to quite finish responding to Mark's
Yes.
comments were about, he's got an architect, why do we need to have somebody else?
Right.
One of the things that I've heard over and over and over again, and I saw Mayor Horner was here, and he and I dealt with this 15 years ago, we've always done it this way. And that seems to be the response when questions come up. Well, we've always done it that way. In this situation, there's nothing that requires that you have an architect review. It's very instructive sometimes to look at what the law says, what the ordinance says, or in this case, what the International Building Code says, which is what we follow. All that it says is that the building official, which is shall examine or cause to be examined the accompanying construction documents and shall ascertain by such examination whether the construction indicated and described is in accordance with the requirements of this code and other pertinent laws or ordinances. Now, we've always required an outside architect to look at it, and that may well be a good idea, because sometimes one architect may see it one way, an engineer may see it differently. I'm not criticizing the fact that we have an outside review. The problem seems to me that you're not getting a timely response.
To your point, 2 points just very briefly regarding the team bids. That did not just happen to us, it also happened to our subs too, so we're not the only ones. And what you just said is 100% accurate. Typically what we encounter when we go into a community, especially for something like this, as long as you have signed, sealed, stamped plans by a legitimate third party, the building and zoning office or department will review those and say, yep, it meets all of our city rules and the international building code and everything else. That's typically what we encounter. But, if you're, when we usually see third-party groups come in, might be if you're building something that is not normal, a wastewater treatment plant or a complex hotel or, manufacturing facility of some sort, where it's unusual and the rules might be a little bit more burdensome, then it'll go outside the third party. But I mean, literally, at this facility, we're doing nothing more than, expanding restrooms.
And I can see where building over an existing sewer might be a potential issue, but those kinds of issues we have had in the past, and we solved them by saying, look, if you're going to build over that sewer, you have to agree that if there's a problem, we'll fix it.
And we're liable.
Yeah.
And like I said,
And I've drawn agreements like that already in the city of Watseka.
and we'd be happy to sign them.
On February 17th, I came in here. It was the zoning board of appeals, correct? They voted in 7-0. He goes, well, I love the color blue. I'm glad to see you guys come into town. I was told,
You get me a stamp set of plans, I'll give you a permit. That was February 17th. How much longer can we continue to beg this guy up in Chicago, or wherever he's at, I don't even know. He's got a 219 area code.
That's Indiana.
I know. That's the only that's the only contact I've got from him. I don't even know where he's from.
So
I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me why the city would pay some guy to go to bat for them and chase people out of town.
This is the first problem we've had like this with Kessler.
I was told, Mr. Mayor, when I finally did get the plan, as soon as we got that approval on the 17th, I told my architect, we need these plans. He got them to me in 12 days. I got them to Tom. He told me, I can't give you a permit. I got to send these out. He never told us that before. Then he says, Mark, it'll be 3 or 4 weeks. I said, 3 or 4 weeks for what? This is a stamp set of plans.
and then
It's Tom's turn. You want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you. I have been accused of a lot of things here. The name calling, demeaning things about subs, plural subs. The only sub that I haven't had any contact with at all in this project is a gentleman by the name of Tom Sack, who came in to get a roof permit. And when Mr. Lindsay said that I told him that only the owner could get the permit, that couldn't be farther from the truth. What I asked for was the address of the owner. I was supplied that. The permit, I issued the permit on the 6th of this month, and the 7th, a young man came in, the 8th, a young man came in to the office, identified himself as from RP Lumber, said his name was David McGill. He asked to pick up the permit. I said, okay, did you bring the fee? He didn't have anything. I said, okay, when you get the fee, I'd be glad to issue the permit. I had it printed out. It was ready to go. Okay? Mr. McGill, at that time I said, you know what, I would really like to get into the building to see the progress for the demolition. And by the way, to back up just a fraction, talking about structural things inside the building, there are 6 new 8x8 steel posts that are going to go floor to ceiling with 2 LVL beams that have no load calculations. Those were asked for by Mr. Kesslin, and that's why I left you a message and asked you to have your... Excuse me.
Do you have documentation for that?
Excuse me? Of course I do.
Can that be faxed to Kessling and supplies to get that expedited?
Yeah.
The load calculator?
What I did was...
We don't have
Of course.
Do we have them?
No, they have not been supplied.
Okay. Before we get anything here, I think we're back to the communication problem now. That's what this sounds like. Is it for some reason, that's one didn't get back to your architect telling him he needs the load calculations.
Mr. Kesslin, excuse me, Mr. Kesslin called me and asked me to have this gentleman call him. So I called Mark Lindsay, left him a message on the 16th to ask the architect to call Kesslin Engineering. I have not heard a word from anybody from RP since then. Mr. Kesslin said that when he talked to this gentleman, the guy said, "This is all that I was told to submit." Now, also, Mr. Kesslin said, "What about the load calculations for the posts and beams?" He's not been presented with them. He also said that this building is admittedly, 13,000 square feet?
Plus
Correct?
minus.
Plus a little bit, maybe a little more. The cutoff point for sprinkling a building is 12,000 square feet. Chuck Kesslin asked me, "Tom, are you okay with it if these guys build a firewall?" And I said, "Of course. A 1-hour wall that goes from floor to the seat to the roof line will change that square footage space." To my knowledge, no communication has been back to Kesslin Engineering about any of those things.
Do you have anything in writing that he carbon copied to you that he sent to my architect?
No?
Our architect.
Okay, just a phone call.
Yes.
If there's deficiencies, why would this guy that the city of Watseka paid, good money, I guarantee, email my architect when he's requested it? When they talked
Talk to
on
him
the
on the
phone.
telephone.
They talked on the phone,
I mean,
you're right.
Look, typically,
But it was just,
these
it
things,
was vague stuff.
you want to talk about,
Vague
hold on a second. You want to talk about liability. I have never, in my experience, where engineers or architects have been exchanging information, that you just talk on the phone and recalculate and send. I mean, typically, you send a report like Robinson Engineering did, said, "Here's the issues, address them." We address them and send it back. Regardless of all of that, there are serious issues, but communication's a problem. That is why I reached out to the mayor yesterday, and basically about what I was told was, "I'm very sorry you guys have experienced this. It really shouldn't be happening." And I said, "Well, we can avoid this. Let's keep moving the project forward." And I was told, "Well, look," and he did offer to get the stop work thing removed, but he said, "You know, you guys have to go through this. Maybe you'll be the last and we can fix it for people in the future." And look, it's just not good enough. I mean, what else do we have to go through?
I have a magic wand, I can't make it go well.
I completely understand that, but I think you can make
I
money.
am willing, having heard what you said tonight, and I don't mean to cut this short, we got,
I understand that.
we got another meeting to go yet
I
tonight.
understand.
And I will say right now, that as far as I'm concerned, and if the council wants to argue with me, they can argue with me, but as far as I'm concerned, we need to back this thing up and get it back on track and do it as quickly as we can. And I'm willing to work in that direction with you.
And I 100%.
If that's suitable to you folks. I understand you guys went through a lot of aggravation. We felt the same aggravation on our end that you guys are feeling, only we're feeling the aggravation from you as you're feeling it from us. And that's the communication problem. Period. Okay?
I frankly, I don't think there's aggravation. I think there's been enjoyment by certain people putting us through this
Well,
process.
yeah, we're not
But
going to
regardless of that, I would love to work with you, but everything we've been told to this point was, we'll get it fixed. If someone can lay out a concrete plan where we can get this lumberyard open in 4 to 6 weeks, we'll knock it out, and you guys will be 100% pleased with what we do. But if I'm going to get in trouble if I go back and say, well, we're kind of working something out maybe, because I just, and I know we can't do that tonight.
But I can't give you a guarantee tonight, obviously.
But if people can talk, I'll gladly drive back up here tomorrow, I'll gladly drive back up here Thursday, but time is money, and I've got to get 2 other facilities open this month, I get 1 facility open next month, and there's serious concern about the process here, so, you know, great questions by the council and stuff, we want to work with you guys, but, I mean, it is at the breaking point. Sure. And we'll do, as always, whatever we have to do, but this can't continue like this.
Does the Robinson representative have any authority